So, this is what depression means to me, day 16. Um, and I have a bit of a story from work yesterday, which I think shows just how quickly depression can come in, even when you think you're having a good day. So I got to work and everything was good that day. Everything was good beforehand. I felt really good. I felt really good. And then I got to work, and the other people that I work with were having like an in-depth conversation, and no one said hi to me, which on any other day like wouldn't really have bothered me. I feel like because it's happened before, like no one said hi to me, and it's fine, like who cares, right? But yesterday it really did bother me. And I found myself getting really agitated, getting sad, and starting to feel that like empty, like just really, really empty. And it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like anything, but it doesn't feel good. It's just empty. And from then on, like the whole time I was at work until we closed, I wasn't in a bad mood. I was just in a mood where like I didn't want to engage with anyone. And I kept muttering things to myself like I hate my life. I just want to go home. Like all this sort of stuff. And I know that work really helps me. I know that it really does. Because there's a part of me that knows that I need to be there because I need the money. And sometimes it's the only reason I can leave my house is like because I have to go to work. And sometimes I lay in bed and have to talk myself out of like calling in and telling them I quit. And it's really tough. And I can fake it on one front, like with customers, because I work at the cash right now. With the customers, I can sort of be like, hey, hi, how are you? Like, what can I get for you? But with the people I work with, I can't do it. I can't fake on all fronts. I can't do it. And it's tough when people ask you what's wrong, because even you don't really know. And I keep reflecting back on this conversation I had with the supervisor that was working that day, yesterday, and he was like, Liz, are you okay? And I was like, no. And he was like, well, is there anything we can do? And I was like, no. He was like, well, what's wrong? And I was like, nothing. But even that is more honest than I want it to be, and that's important, right? The honesty portion of that, of being like, are you okay? No, I'm not. And it's hard because what am I gonna say that's more honest? Look, I suffer from clinical depression. No, I'm not okay. Because not everyone needs to know that. Although this kind of goes like directly against me videotaping and telling possibly everyone that I do. I suffer from clinical depression. That's a thing. That's a real thing that I was diagnosed with. it seems like a fairy tale because it's been so long since my diagnosis, and I've had so many other things happen in my life. Like, I have generalized anxiety. I'm a recovering addict. Like, all these sort of things, especially the addiction portion, right, came before depression for a really long time. Because there was no way I was going to treat my depression if I was still living in addiction. But now that I'm not living in addiction, I have an opportunity to treat my depression and my anxiety. And my anxiety has subsided quite a lot. But I guess I never realized just how bad my depression is. I think my depression comes off as like an attention problem, because I drift off. I stare at things that maybe don't merit being stared at, like the floor. I'll just stare at the floor, and sort of drift off into thinking about nothing really, but thinking about that like emptiness that I feel, but not really thinking about it. It's just like I'm aware of it and I sort of sit in it. And I think that makes people think that I'm not paying attention, or I have an attention problem. Which I also do. That's a real thing. I do have ADD. But I think that I talked about this before, how I think that when you have like a whole bunch of mental health issues, they sort of all like blend together at some point. And then maybe you have anxiety up here, depression's way down here, like addiction is in the middle, and like my ADHD is sort of like in like I can't wiggle these ones separately, but it's down there, and they all sort of like fire together and like feed off each other, and become like just a storm of problems, and create things like crying for no reason. At work yesterday, I kept forgetting to put the drink names on the orders, which is really important because then people don't have to ask me again and again, is there a drink on this order? What's the drink? And my supervisor was like, Liz, you need to remember to put the drinks on the order. And I started to feel like I was gonna cry. And like, even when I think about it right now, like, that sounds so ridiculous. That sounds so ridiculous. Like, oh, I forgot to put the drink on one order. I just have to remember to do that. But now I'm gonna cry about it. And it's hard. It's really difficult. Um, because without explaining that I have depression and that like I'm really depressed today, people don't know what's going on, right? And I feel like maybe I need to have a conversation with somebody about this at work, and just tell them like, sometimes if I come in like this, um like I don't think it needs to be recognized, but I think that if I opened up a dialogue about it, it might be easier for me to come in and say like, look, um I'm really struggling today. And I just want you to understand that today might be really hard for me. But I can work today. I can do the job. It's important for me to do this. It's important for me to work through it, but it might be really hard for me today. Um, I felt better. I felt better later. But, oh man, was I like, the things that were going through my head yesterday when I was at work are not entirely okay. And when I get in states like that, sometimes it's like, so I always describe it like this, so I'm going to turn my head, like, all the depression, anxiety, addiction sits back here in, like, a different portion of my brain. And, like, aware Liz sits up in I think it's the prefrontal cortex. And so I hear these thoughts in my head that come from the back. This is how it seems to work to me. They come from the back. And I can agree with them, or I can fight them. And what I've really been working on is learning how to fight them. And sometimes, more often when I'm alone, the back of my brain will be like, what's the point? Like, no one even cares about you. Like, what's the point? And Liz, aware Liz, who lives in the prefrontal cortex, goes sometimes out loud, because, and I think that's been my most important weapon, is learning to do that, because if you say it out loud, it becomes more true than if it's in your head. And I will say, that is not true. Here is why. Or sometimes even just, like, if it's a stupid little thing, like, oh, you know, I'd really like a beer right now. Obviously can't have a beer, like, I have an addiction problem. And sometimes it's even as little as just going, when I hear thoughts like that. The physical release, the noting that what my brain just said is crazy. Like, it's crazy, it's not true, it's fundamentally not true. And learning these sort of, like, weapons, like arming myself with things I can do to solidify to myself that, like, I do deserve to be alive. There are people that love me. It is going to get better even if it's hard. Things like that. Because those need to be solidified on a daily basis, or I'm not going to survive. And that's a hard truth to own. But it is a truth. If you ignore depression, like, the odds are against you. Like I said in yesterday's video, like, depression is a silent killer. It wants you alone, it wants you sad, and it wants you cut off from connection with other people. So I've really, really, really been working on arming myself up. Because I do truly love myself, even if that's not what my brain tells me on a daily basis. And I think now that I've actually put it out there and just sort of gone into it, even though that's not what I plan to talk about, I think it is important to open up a dialogue with certainly my employer for myself. I don't know about anyone else, right? I can only talk about me. But I've worked there for about 7 months now. They seem to like me. They seem to value my work ethic. And I think that might be an important next step, is to tell them what's going on in my life so that they understand a little bit. And how that, like, I'm not just having a bad day. Like, I didn't just have a fight with someone and I'm coming in like this. Like, I have clinical depression and this is a real problem. Yeah. But looking forward today, I'm very optimistic about it. Gonna try and catch up and actually do today's video today as opposed to doing it the next day. So, see you later.